Have you been trying a lot to go into that inner space within you, to a space of calmness, to a space of peace and tranquility? But you just can't because you are overwhelmed with a whole lot of negative emotions, anger, anxiety, guilt, depression, shame. All of these negative emotions are just flooding your mind, flooding your inner space, and depriving you of getting that sense of peace and tranquility in your inner space. Do you want to get rid of them? Do you want to know how? You can. Well, if you want to know how to get rid of this, and believe me, you can, meet me this Sunday at Hingori Sutras, 9 o'clock sharp, waiting for you there.
Namaskar, good evening, everybody. Team Hingori Sutras welcomes you to this session of In Conversation with Gauri Rao Kavi. Emotions, a word that carries the weight of several worlds. So often you're told to control your emotions, that in professional situations, showing them is a sign of weakness. Yet in personal relations, expressing them builds bonds and communication. There is a complicated web with each different strand representing the professional sphere, the personal spaces, spiritual growth, and so much more that has spun around this one small word, emotion. To unravel the mystery that is emotions, how they fit in spirituality, and how you can truly be the master of them, we have with us tonight Gauri Rao Kavi. Gauri is a counseling psychologist practicing an array of therapies. She practices psychotherapy, primarily rational, emotive, and cognitive behavior therapy, as an associate fellow and supervisor with the Albert Ellis Institute, New York, and is the founder of Self-Align. She also practices integrated clinical hypnotherapy and past life regression therapy. She offers one-on-one coaching and counseling therapy sessions apart from her signature workshop, which is Self-Align, teaching skills for self-healing and empowerment. Gauri's career spans over 4 decades, of which 15 years were as learning and organization development professional. A very warm welcome to you, Gauri. आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है.
Hello, everyone. Today we are going to discuss decoding emotions. Emotions are a huge part of our lives because they impact our lives very, very strongly. Everything that we do, all our relationships, our actions, our behavior, the way we interact with people, the way we relate with people, the way we ourselves interact with ourselves, all of this is impacted by how we feel. Our mental peace, our mental serenity and tranquility, again, is impacted by our emotions. So this is indeed an interesting topic, and I'm happy to sit and discuss this with you today. Decoding emotions. So I'm going to give you 2 perspectives. One is from our ancient scriptures, Yoga, and then I will talk a little more about emotions from the Western psychology, the perspective of Western psychology. So in yoga, emotions, the negative emotional state is known as kleshas, right? So there are 5 kleshas. One is avidya, which is ignorance. Then there's asmita, which is egoism. There's raga, which is attachment, huge one. Dvesha, which is aversion to anything. And then there's Abhinavesh, which is the fear of death, right? Now, all these 5 kleshas are created by, once again, in the yogic philosophy, by our chitta vrittis, right? What are chitta vrittis? Chitta vrittis are your fluctuations, thought fluctuations, how your thoughts fluctuate, right? So again, there are 5 such fluctuations or chitta vrittis. One is the pramana. Pramana is what we call correct knowledge. And there are 3 different kinds of pramana, but we don't need to get into that. So that is correct knowledge. Then there is a viparya, which is illusion or wrong knowledge, contradiction to truth. Okay, and this can be eradicated by correct knowledge, which is pramana. Then we have the vikalpa, which is imagination or assumptions, which may or may not be true, may be based on facts or not. Then there is nidra, which is sleep, so you know that you are not awake. And then there is smriti, which is memory, or the ability to recall from stored information, that is from the past information or past knowledge. Okay? So, how do we get rid of the kleshas? Now, according to yoga, you need to change your chitta vrittis. So basically, you need to replace your negative thought processes or your negative fluctuations, thought fluctuations, with positive thought. But that's easier said than done, right? So let me now give you a slight brief about emotions from the perspective of Western psychology, which perhaps could be a little easier, I would say, if you're not into any kind of yogic practice or whatever. You know, this could be a little easier for you to understand and adapt. So, what are emotions according to Western psychology? Firstly, emotions don't come without a sense of purpose. There's always a sense of purpose whenever you're feeling a very strong negative emotion, because the emotion is so strong that there is definitely a sense of purpose. And emotions are also universal in expressions, right? Now, emotions by themselves are a mixture of some of these aspects. What are these aspects? One is feelings, okay? Now, feelings are a subjective experience. The way I feel is different from the way you feel. It's different from the way somebody else feels. And which can change, which is dynamic. So it can change in the moment. It can change over a period of time, right? And it changes from person to person. It also changes from situation to situation. Emotions are followed by cognition. The feelings are followed by cognition. I'm going to be speaking about that a little more in detail a little later. And they also create a phenomenological awareness. Okay? Now, another aspect of emotions is social expression. What do we do with these emotions? We express these emotions well. Some emotions we may not express, or we may not express all the negative emotions all the time. But 9 out of 10 times we do express them. There are times when we keep them inside of us, where we bottle them up, and which is very, very dangerous, because one fine day they just erupt like a volcano and throw us into a complete state of chaos. However, more often than not, we do express them. So there is something called social expression. Now, what do we mean by social expression? Social communication, how we communicate the feeling of anger or hurt or jealousy or envy or guilt or anxiety, right? How we communicate that through our facial expressions, our vocal expressions, which come under the domain of non-verbal communication, right? So there is verbal communication and there is non-verbal communication. Now, non-verbal communication, it has been proven, is far, far, far more impactful than verbal communication. So my words don't matter as much as my body language, as my facial expressions, my tonality, my voice modulation, all of this, which I'm not conscious of when I'm expressing these emotions. Okay? But these impact the other person far more than just my words. Okay? So that is social expression. Another aspect of emotions is body arousal. Now, whenever you feel a negative emotion very strongly, let's say anxiety, let's say anger, there is a physiological activation that happens, right? Something starts stirring in your body. You know, if you want to take anger, for instance, you know, some people, they go red in the face, the lips, the mouth start quivering, or their hands start trembling because they're so much in a state of rage. Ears may feel warm, you feel hot, you know. So there are certain physiological activation that happens. And the body now starts preparing to express this emotion so that then there is a motor response. So there is a physiological activation. My body now is preparing. The brain is sending all kinds of messages to certain parts of my body. And then there is a motor response where finally I slap somebody or I take something and I hit the person and I become physically violent. All right? Another part of emotions, another aspect of emotions is cognitive reaction. Now, this is extremely important because this is really where it all begins, okay? It begins from my perception as to how I am perceiving, how I am viewing, what am I thinking about the certain adversity, about the certain situation or circumstance or event that has happened. So something has happened. How I am perceiving that goes a long way in the creation of that emotion. So how I think and how I perceive or what I believe about what has happened or what is happening, my thought process creates the relevant emotion. And then together, it impacts my behavior or my actions. And in totality, I then have an experience which is based on these negative emotions and which is based on the way I have perceived what has happened. Okay? So cognitive reaction is a very, very huge part of creating emotions. Then, of course, there is the emotion by itself, that is affect, as we call it. So in this, it is the tone, the mood. Am I feeling low? Am I feeling hyper? Am I hyper? What is the tonality? What is, what is the tone of how I'm feeling? So this is tone and mood. And then, of course, another aspect is the physiological reaction. Now, this triggers certain hormones in our brain, which then change the metabolism and the chemical reactions in the brain. So somewhere certain neurons are then activated and certain messages are sent and certain hormones are created, which then are sent to our limbic system and it creates that emotion. So this is the physiological reaction. And then last but not the least, we have a behavioral response, which shows again in our body language, in our facial expressions, in our behavior. Sometimes we cry if you're feeling depressed, or even when we feel very, very angry, we cry, we scream, we shout. So these are all our behavioral responses. Okay? Now, why is it so important to decode these emotions? We always, there was a time when the mind was considered to be the place of cognitive action. Cognitive, everything to do with thinking and reasoning and deducting and rationality, etc. And emotions were supposed to be coming from the heart, right? Which is why when we say I love you, there is a heart. You don't draw a brain there, right? You draw a heart, and heart is the symbol of love. So the heart was supposed to be the seat of the emotion. Now, even if you talk about the chakras, right? The Anahat chakra, which is the location of giving and receiving love and affection, etc. It's again situated around the heart, right in the middle over here. However, well, at least in Western psychology, it's not really the heart. The heart basically just pumps blood. Okay, now we are not talking about chakras here. So the heart basically just pumps blood to the brain and other parts of the body. So it's actually the brain. Now, the brain, again, when we talk about the brain or we talk about the head, my head is feeling heavy or there's too much happening in my head. When we are talking about the head space, there are two aspects really. One is the brain, which is a physical organ. So it's the hardware, right? And then there is the mind, which can't be seen with the naked eye, but this is the software, right? Now, according to metaphysics, the mind is actually so big that it really surrounds you, your entire auric field, right? Your aura is your electromagnetic field, so which surrounds you. So your entire auric field, 12 feet in diameter, is how big it is. And this is what we know as the mind in metaphysics. The core of that is not the heart, is not the brain, but it is supposed to be the pit of your stomach, at your navel, right? So anyway, we're not going to talk about metaphysics or anything, but I just thought I would tell you that your head space is two things. One is the physical organ, the hardware, which is the brain, and then there is the mind, which is the software. Now, all your emotions, therefore, don't come from your heart. They come from the mind, right? So your brain and your mind, the software, which creates all these thoughts and then creates all these emotions, sends the messages to the hardware to start pumping out certain chemicals, certain hormones, which then make you anxious, give you that physical experience of being anxious, angry, hurt, etc., etc. Okay? So if you actually go to see, it's a very complicated process. However, the good part for us is that if we are able to regulate our emotions, if we are able to control our emotions, if we are able to identify which cognitions, which perceptions these emotions are coming from. Because remember what we said, it is our perception, it is our thought, it is our cognitive process, how we see things, our attitude, our outlook to events, to the environment, right? And which again is subjective because it changes from people to people. One man's poison is another man's medicine. How I may view a particular situation is different to how you may view that situation. So my emotional reactions are going to be different to yours. Therefore, if I can change that thinking to something which is healthier, the emotions that will be created may not be as unhealthy and they may not disturb me as much, right? So, the cognitive aspect, the thought aspect is extremely important, and that is really what we are going to look into a little more deeply today. But just to help you understand that if you want mental peace, let's say, I don't know how much you guys may have heard about Maslow's hierarchy. So let's just say there is this imaginary iceberg. Okay. Now, the tip of the iceberg is what is observed, but below the iceberg, there are a lot of things happening. Now, at the base is what we call the physical quotient, right? Your body awareness, your ability to learn skills and use them. Then above that is your IQ, as we know, intelligent quotient. So one is the physical quotient, one is the intelligent quotient. Intelligent quotient is basically how your ability to grasp, your cognitive ability to grasp things, your math, your verbal intelligence, all of that. Then there is EQ, which is spoken a lot about today, which is managing, how well you are managing your emotions. Okay. And finally, this is where we all want to reach, is your spiritual quotient. Because the endeavor of every human being is to function at his peak, is to function what we call, self-actualization, to be a self-actualized human being, which means that you are functioning to your highest potential, your highest ability. And when you get there, only then can your spiritual quotient be high, because your spiritual quotient is all about your inner wisdom, right? It is guided by compassion, and it is guided by your inner and outer equanimity, which ultimately keeps you in a very peaceful state of mind, right? So if there is this balance between your inner emotions and your physicality, then of course there is this sense of peace and tranquility that you will feel, and which then shows that you are progressing on your spiritual path. Now, your emotional quotient balances your spiritual and intelligent quotient. Energy is always followed by intent. Your left frontal lobe is something that we call the happy brain, right? Laughter unfreezes a stuck brain, and humor is a lubricant which keeps you, which helps you to think better. So you learn better when you are vibrant and happy and joyful. And joy is an antidote to misery. Optimism is an antidote to any kind of fear. And happiness is an antidote to rage, right? Incidentally, a smile leads to happy hormones, but we all know that. But then how much do we smile? How often do we smile? Because when you smile, your brain creates happy hormones, right? So emotional well-being, emotional fitness is extremely important to your mental and spiritual growth ultimately. Because if you are not happy, if you are in emotional distress, if you are in this whole whirlpool of a whole concoction of all these negative emotions like anger and anxiety and guilt and hurt and depression, etc., etc., if you are caught up in this entire web, then there's no way you're going to be happy. There's no way you're going to have emotional peace or mental peace. And if that is not there, then how can you pursue your journey in spirituality? Ultimately, that is the goal, to be self-actualized, right? So now, let's come back to emotions. Now, positive emotions, we're not going to be talking about positive emotions, but positive emotions have a lot of benefits. One is that it broadens the focus, it expands your thinking, improves your problem-solving ability. It builds a lot of physical, intellectual, social, emotional resources, resilience, your ability to bounce back. It counteracts negative emotions. And ultimately, it protects your well-being. So it protects your health. Right? But we're not talking about positive emotions because clearly they are not the problem. They only help us. Negative emotions. If you've ever been to a lake, and I'm sure a lot of you have, a very, very placid, a very calm, serene lake. And you take a pebble and you just drop that pebble in the lake. Plop. One pebble, one teeny weeny pebble. It just goes plop in the water. What happens? It causes ripples. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's this whole ripple effect, right? So, earlier that lake was calm, it was placid, it was not moving, the water was not moving, it was still, there was a stillness. And now with this one teeny pebble, so many ripples have been caused to upset the stillness of that lake, right? Imagine what happens when you have one unhealthy, disturbing, illogical, irrational thought in your mind. That one thought creates a whole, not just a ripple, but an entire tsunami, I would say, of emotions, all negative emotions, right? So all these negative emotions, the ones that I've mentioned before just now, and a whole lot more, shame, guilt, hurt, anger, anxiety, all these emotions put together, all of them start popping up with that one irrational cognition that you think, one perception, right? Now, when that happens, when you're hit with a tsunami, there's not much you can do about it, right? However, prevention is better than cure. If you're able to identify the root cause of that ripple, then you can stop the tsunami. Maybe there will be a ripple of sorts, because you can't always think positive. It's not possible. A human being is a concoction. It is a very complex mixture of positive, negative, and neutral thoughts, traits, etc. So it's not possible, unless you are some kind of a Tibetan monk or something, who's really like got enlightened or something. Unless you are at that, and that is a different. But for us, we are just mere mortals, and for us, it isn't possible to always have positive thoughts, right? However, as long as our thoughts are based in rationality, in logic, in reason, and we have some kind of a proof, we have some kind of an evidence to substantiate that thought with. That, okay, this is how I'm thinking, I have something to substantiate what I'm saying or what I'm thinking. And if that thought is helpful for us, okay, then perhaps we may not, in fact, we won't have a tsunami, but maybe we might still have a ripple effect, but definitely not a tsunami, definitely not a hurricane. Okay, we may have a ripple effect. Why? Because ultimately it's not extremely positive. That thought may not be extremely positive. It may be rational, it may be logical, it may be more helpful, it may have some kind of evidence to substantiate, but it may not entirely be positive. Okay, I'll give you an example of that in a bit. So that thought then in that case may not give you a complete placid, still tranquil state of mind. It may create a few ripples, but it's something that we can deal with, something that we can handle, something that we can cope with. Okay, so now how are these cognitions caused? When we have, and all of us do, trust me, from time to time, when we have very rigid expectations from ourselves, from others, and from the world or life at large, life in general. Okay? When I have certain rigid expectations, that I should be perfect, I should do everything perfectly, I should be in a certain way, I should never be wrong, everything that I do should be absolute perfection, or people must treat me well, absolutely, nobody should ever hurt me, nobody should be unfair to me, people should treat me well in every respect, which means that if I'm having certain expectations from them, then they need to fulfill those expectations. And the third, life should treat me well. Life should not treat me in an unfair manner. I mean, come on. I'm special. Yeah? We all have these very rigid expectations from ourselves, from others, and from life. Because we all think that we are special, and we are. However, you are as special as I am. And somebody is as special as we both are. Point is that we are all unique in our own way. So instead of acknowledging and accepting our own uniqueness, which is made up of our positives, our negatives, and certain neutral things. My positives may be that I'm perhaps very generous and perhaps very helpful. My negative may be that I'm prone to lying. And neutral as well, I prefer a rose to a lily. Now, you have your own share of positives, negatives, and neutrals, which are different from mine. And that is what makes you absolutely unique, right? So instead of acknowledging and accepting that we are unique and we are this complex mixture of positive, negative, we instead want to only have positive. We expect only the positive from ourselves, from others, and from the world at large, or from life. So when we say that life must treat me well, it means that, hello, there can't be any downs in my life. My life must always have ups. Only good things should happen to me. Nothing bad should ever happen to me. I should not go through any phases which are challenging. Everything should be hunky-dory. Happiness and sunshine all through my life, right? Similarly, you are expecting only positive things from others. So people should always treat me well. They should always treat me with love and respect and think the world of me. Do everything that I want them to do. Keep me happy. Give in to all my wants and desires, etc., etc. And then expectation from myself I should be perfect. Because I'm special, I'm fantastic, I'm wonderful. I should be perfect. Slight difference. Yes, you are wonderful. Yes, you are special. Yes, you are unique. But you're not perfect. Sorry to break that bubble. Nor am I. Nor am I. No human being is perfect. Perfection is not a part of our DNA. You can strive for it. But trust me, you will never be perfect in everything that you do at every given point in time. Not possible. That is what makes us human. The fact that we are not perfect. The fact that we make mistakes. The fact that we do wrong things. That's what the whole learning of life is all about. Right? But because we have these very rigid expectations, we then, when those expectations are not met, when those expectations are not fulfilled, either by ourselves, for ourselves, or others don't fulfill those expectations for us, or life does not fulfill those expectations, that is when we react with negative emotions. That is when we get angry, that is when we get anxious, that is when we feel hurt, we get depressed, we blame ourselves. Because I'm not perfect, I'm not good enough. So I feel guilty. I'm not being a good daughter, I'm not being a good wife, I'm not being a good mother. I'm just not good enough. Why? Because I'm not perfect. I have to be a perfect wife. I have to be a perfect mother, a perfect daughter, a perfect human being. And if I'm not anywhere near that, then I'm not good enough. So that's the other extreme. Now, when I tell myself that I'm not good enough, am I going to feel happy? Am I going to feel good? No. I'm going to go into a state of depression because I'm constantly pulling myself down. I'm self-depreciating. I'm devaluing myself, right? I'm going to feel guilty. Oh my God, I just couldn't be a perfect daughter. I couldn't do anything for my parents. I couldn't do anything for my family. Couldn't do anything for whatever. So then there is guilt, there is depression, then there is shame. How can I even show my face to anybody? I'm so useless. I'm so incompetent. I'm an nincompoop. I shouldn't even be showing my face to anybody. So you see, and then also I drive myself into this constant state of anxiety because I'm second guessing myself with everything that I do. I'm doubting myself in everything that I do because I don't have any self-confidence, right? I don't believe in myself. I don't believe I'm good enough to do anything. So when I don't believe that, then obviously I'm going to doubt every single thing that I do. So I'm insecure all the time. Now, when I'm insecure all the time, I'm going to be anxious all the time. So you see how this one irrational thought, this one irrational expectation, a rigid expectation, is causing so many ripples that it is now becoming a tsunami of emotions. There is guilt, there is anxiety, there is depression, there is shame. There is a whole lot of emotions, not just one. And then I get caught up in all those emotions and then I don't know how to come out of it. What do? I've dragged myself into this whirlpool of emotions and I now don't know how to come out of it. All with one single thought process. A rigid expectation, in this case, in this example, of perfection from myself. Now, when we have these kind of rigid expectations from others, if I expect that all my desires, all my wishes, all my aspirations, everything that I want should be fulfilled by my partner, by my parents, by my organization, by my whatever, whoever. Okay, everything that I want, they should fulfill. When I have this kind of an expectation from others and they don't fulfill it, they don't meet my expectations, what do? I get angry. I'm pissed off. How can they do it? This is how I want things done. So that's how things should be done. So every time there are these shoulds, musts, has to happen, should happen, must happen. Every time you catch yourself using these kind of words, that is your red flag. There is a rigid expectation. There is a demand, things should happen in a particular way. So I've set too high standards for myself, which my entire lifetime I may not be able to get there. Unrealistic, very, very unrealistic. But the point is that we do this. And when those expectations then are not met, then we create all these emotions for ourselves. So one tip is every time you catch yourself feeling one of these emotions, negative emotions, which are very, very unhealthy. Why are they unhealthy? Because they freeze you. They send you in a mode of paralysis. They paralyze you. When you're extremely anxious, you can't think straight. You become dysfunctional. You're just paralyzed. When you're extremely angry, again, you cannot think rationally. You cannot think straight. You cannot reason. You cannot think also that there is another point of view, that maybe you are wrong. Maybe the other person is right. No. You're frozen. You're paralyzed. And that is the case for all these negative emotions. They just freeze you. They paralyze you. So you cannot function at that time. They just take over. They consume you. Literally consume you. Right? So, in order not to feel such extreme, unhealthy emotions which leave you paralyzed, the moment you start feeling that, okay, I don't think I'm feeling too good about this, immediately identify, what am I thinking? Is there a should? Is there a must? Is there a has to happen? What is happening in my mind? What is the dialogue that I'm feeding myself? What is the crap that I'm feeding myself? Because it is that crap that is going to cause you the indigestion. It is that crap that is going to make you start puking all these negative emotions out of your system, right? So one trick is to identify and immediately catch. Is there a should? Is there a must? Am I demanding something? Am I having a very strong, rigid expectation about something? If I am, let me change it to being a little more flexible. That, hello, I may be special, I may be unique. I'm not the Queen of Sheba. I'm no goddess. Well, we all have divinity in us, spiritually speaking, but I'm not speaking spiritually right now. Okay, let me put it this way. I'm no different from you or you or you or you. We are all made up of the same matter, the same cosmic energy, right? So there is no difference between us. We are all connected energetically. So if there is no difference between us, then nothing makes me special from you. You are as special as I am. You are as unique as I am. You are as divine as I am. So then, what justification is there for me to demand things from you? What justification is there for me to demand things from life? That life should treat me well. Life should treat everybody well. All 7.7 billion of us. Right? But it doesn't. It doesn't. It has its own agenda. And whether we like it or not, it rules us. We don't rule it. It controls us. We don't control it. Right? So, if we can just at that point say to ourselves in our mind that, okay, am I having this kind of a very rigid expectation from others, from myself, from life, which is not being fulfilled? If so, let me be more flexible and not have this expectation, because just because I want something to happen in a particular way doesn't necessarily mean that it absolutely has to. I may want the moon, I may want the stars, I may want everything. But does it mean that everything that I want, I should get? No. Has it ever happened in your life that you got everything that you wanted? It doesn't. There are times when everything is good, fine, great, going great guns. And then there are dips when nothing works. Everything, every plan that I have made just goes for a toss. Right? So, just because I have certain aspirations, I have certain wishes, I have certain desires, I have certain wants, doesn't mean that they have to be fulfilled. If we can just remember this, that all of us have our own aspirations, but just because we have them does not mean that they have to be met by our our family, our close friends, people in our environment. Nor do they have to be met by life. And nor do you also absolutely have to meet every expectation you have of yourself. Because, like I mentioned earlier, you're not perfect. Acknowledge it, accept it, embrace yourself unconditionally the way you are. With the bad, with the good, with the neutral, with all your imperfections. Just embrace yourself the way you are. Embrace yourself as a human being. If you can do that, you can turn that tsunami into ripples. Why ripples? And why not a completely placid state of being? Because, again, let's be a little reasonable here. If I want something very badly, and that doesn't happen, things don't go the way I wanted them to go, I'm not going to be happy about it. And that's a fact. I can't fool myself. I have to be honest with myself. I'm not going to be happy about it. Right? So therefore, the ripples. I'm not going to be happy about it, but at the same time, I do not need to get into and face a tsunami. Ripples are okay. I can deal with them. Slowly they will pass. Right? That is something I can cope with. A tsunami is something that I cannot cope with. It's not always possible to stay positive. Like I said, if something doesn't go the way I want it to go, for some time at least, till I see that silver lining behind the cloud, till the wisdom kicks in, that maybe whatever happened for the best, and things will go as they have to go. It is as it is. Whatever will be, right? Till that wisdom kicks in, I am going to feel bad because things haven't gone according to plan. Things haven't gone according to the way I wanted them. That bad is the ripple effect, which is something that I can handle. I can deal with it. What I can't deal is the hurricane, is the tsunami. Okay? So, boy, I've been talking for a really long time. What's the time? Yeah. Okay. So let me quickly end this session by giving you a few tips, something that you can work on yourself. Every time you find yourself feeling a strong negative emotion, okay? It could be anger, it could be anxiety, it could be hurt, it could be any strong negative emotion which is now beginning to slowly consume you, right? Stop. Just stop. And say to yourself, I'm feeling whatever that emotion is. So let's say I'm feeling angry. So you're acknowledging. See, we don't want to suppress negative emotions. Suppression of anything, of any kind, is bad. We don't want to suppress them, because when you suppress them, when you bottle them up one after the other, what happens? One fine day, there's a volcano. Puss, everything just goes up in the air, and there is lava all over the place, which just turns everything into ashes. So that is very self-destructive. It can completely just destruct you, right? So we don't want to suppress negative emotions. We want to acknowledge them. So I'm feeling whatever, angry, let's say, because your core issue, the core problem, identify what that is. What is my rigid expectation? Is it from myself? Is it from somebody else, a particular person? Or is it from life in general? Is it from the world? What is it that I'm very strongly expecting, and that expectation has not been met? So, I feel angry because, fill in the blanks, and I wonder what I can do about it. Now, the moment you say, I wonder what I can do about it, you are creating possibilities of solutions for yourself, which means immediately you are halting that emotion. That, okay, I wonder what I can do about this emotion. Therefore, now my mind has gone into a problem-solving mode. I'm trying to now find solutions as to how I can perhaps not feel angry, and find a solution for the fact that this expectation of mine has not been met. Accept the fact that it has not been met, and there is no reason that it should absolutely be met, like I mentioned earlier. And now I am asking myself and reflecting, okay, what can I do about it? What are the possibilities? Let me explore. So it takes me into this whole self-reflection mode. The moment I go into a self-reflection mode, the anger that I was feeling goes down immediately. It's on pause, okay? Then, next, very pertinent question, again to ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing or not doing that contributes to my problem? Every time we have a problem, and be honest with yourselves, okay? Every time we have a problem, I am never to blame. Like I said, I have a halo around my head. I can never do anything wrong. So I am not to blame. Somebody else is to blame. It's your fault. It's your fault that you got me angry. If you'd listened to me and done this, I wouldn't be angry. You've driven me to this. We're always pointing fingers at others. Now, when I'm doing that, then I'm not taking the blame for anything. right? Therefore, always ask yourself, what am I doing or not doing which is contributing to my problem? Again, takes you into a self-reflection mode. Anger is now diluted even further because now I'm thinking, I'm going within, right? And then say to yourself, I feel angry, anxious, whatever the emotion is, because I cannot, whatever the fill in the blanks, okay, I cannot make this happen, for instance, or I cannot convince this person to my point of view, for instance, or I cannot provide this. This is something that I want to achieve and I cannot achieve this. I cannot accomplish this. Whatever it is that you are expecting, whatever is your expected outcome from that particular incident, from that particular situation. And because that expected outcome hasn't happened, you have got angry, you have got anxious, you have felt hurt, etc. Right? So whatever it is that your expected outcome is, fill in the blanks over there. So I feel angry, I feel anxious because I cannot da 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 da, and I want to. I want that expected outcome, but I cannot achieve it right now. Okay? That's the third thing that you say to yourself. Then sit yourself down very calmly and make a list. What are the steps that can take me to that outcome? And write them down. If I'm trying to convince somebody, do I need to change my convincing strategy? Do I need to change the strategy of my entire argument? If I'm trying to achieve something and it is not happening and it's a physical or a tangible thing, do I need to upgrade my skills? Do I need to learn something? What is it that I need to do to equip myself so that I can accomplish that particular task? Right? So whatever it is, make a list of those things that you need to do. What have I not done earlier? What can I do differently? What have I not tried before? What have I been scared to try before? What is another way of looking at it? What are other possibilities which I have not explored, which can maybe get me to that outcome? Make a list of those and then make it your action plan. Work on that. And hopefully, if all goes well, you'll get to where you want to go. However, always bear in mind that every time there are shoulds and musts and have tos and have, all these are rigid. There is nothing that is a should, nothing that has to be a must, just because you want it so. Acknowledge that, accept that, be flexible in your thinking. If you are flexible in your thinking, trust me, this avalanche of emotions that distress you, that consume you, absolutely strip you of all your mental peace and tranquility, serenity, the stillness of your mind, which you need to continue your journey, your spiritual journey. All of that will go. Just don't allow your emotions to hijack you. Don't allow your emotions to hijack that spiritual growth, that peace of mind, that stillness, that placidity, mental, of your mental lake. Okay? Thank you so very much. This has been rather long. I've been talking for a very, very long time. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I'm now open to any questions or any doubts or anything that you might want to share, any feedback that you may want to give. Open to all of that. So Thank you very, very much.
That was really, really informative and excellent, Gauri. I can't see you, Gauri.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ah, right. Okay. Sorry. I know there must have been a blip in the connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fabulous, Gauri. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much for all the information and the tips. I have a question, if I may ask, Visala. Like you said, emotions don't allow them to hijack you, but it does happen that these emotions occupy your entire being, including your mind, leaving no space for introspection, learning, or development. How can one, are there any more tips that you can share as to how can one empty our mind or create space in the mind to progress further?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Good question. You've heard of mindfulness?
Yes,
That's the
yes.
new buzzword these days.
Absolutely.
But that really, there's the music, I think, is a little loud.
Yeah, we would just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, if you can be mindful, and whenever you're experiencing these emotions and they're, interfering with your, that stillness that you're seeking, ask yourself, what thoughts do I have that keep me from experiencing that stillness? Okay. Just try and observe, be mindful in the moment, in the here and now. Observe that thought. Don't buy into it. No, it's like when you go to a mall and you go window shopping. So when you're window shopping, you're observing things, right? You're not actually buying anything. So don't buy into that thought. Just notice them without trying to change them, without trying to get rid of them. Okay, so have this thought that, okay, a thought that I can't stand something has come into my mind. And then gently remind yourself that, you know what, this too shall pass. Because remember one thing, no emotion remains. Emotions are like a wave, so just ride that wave. Be like a surfer, So imagine that your emotions are waves and you are surfing them and riding them so that you're on top of them and not inside them. So it makes you feel more in control. So don't buy into the drama of that thought and get involved in that emotion. Just be mindful that, okay, right now I am feeling angry. Right now I have this thought, which is what is making me feel angry. So just acknowledge, name that emotion, describe that emotion, experience all the physical sensations that go, because emotions always have a kind of a physical sensation somewhere in your body. So find out where that tension is building up or that anger is building up or whatever. Okay, and then experience that, acknowledge that, observe that. Don't try and change it at that time. And then just tell yourself, okay, this too shall pass, because they don't last. Emotions don't last. Like I said, they are like waves. Ride them.
Right. Beautiful. Dr. Aradhana Sharma, I hope that answers your question about, tips to overcome the ripples of the tsunami or the tsunami that's created. Yeah. And we do have Ravi Trehanji, who gave a beautiful comment here as well, saying acceptance of the inevitable reduces the intensity of the problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Acknowledge and accept.
Beautiful. This is nothing, Gauri, that I would like to know is, depression. Depression, especially with the times that we're going through, has been a very integral part of, I think, most homes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is there some tips that you can give a guide of people how they can sort of recognize those symptoms and work towards getting themselves out of it?
Okay. So one thing we need to, thank you so much for that question. It's a really, really important question, because today a lot of people are finding themselves in a depressive state of mind. And, there are a lot of myths about depression, that, if you are emotionally strong, then you can't get depressed. And depression is only about the weak, and, snap out of it. And, think about other people, they are going through worse, and stop crying about your own little problems and things like that. These are the kind of responses that people normally have when they come to know that somebody in their family or somebody in their friend circle is depressed. This is an absolute no-no. Depression, please understand, nobody wants to be depressed. Nobody wants to be depressed, okay? So it is not something that you want for yourself. So it's not something that you are doing purposely in order to gain some kind of sympathy or empathy or something like that from others. No, this is very real to that person. There is a very, very deep pain that person is going through. And anybody, it can hit anybody at any point in time. You may be the strongest person. You may be somebody who has always motivated and inspired other people, and who's led a very a life which is very inspiring for others. But we all go through periods of extreme vulnerability. We all go through periods when we feel helpless, and that is just a part of us being human, right? So it is kind of a breakdown. It is a breakdown where it is a crisis breakdown where you just don't know how to cope. Okay? Please be supportive of people who are going through depression. If there's nothing you can do, guide them to somebody, ask them to seek professional help. It is available these days. Let's just destigmatize depression. Some of the symptoms, like you asked for, are anything that is out of the person's usual day-to-day normal routine. Suddenly the person starts sleeping too much or doesn't sleep at all, starts eating too much, doesn't eat at all, becomes very irritable, doesn't enjoy doing any of the things he or she enjoyed doing earlier, becomes very isolated, becomes very withdrawn from society. In acute depression, people don't even want to get out of bed for days. They just cannot seem to get themselves to get out of bed, brush their teeth, have a bath, things like that. It can be that acute, okay? Some people will just cry endlessly, and they really don't know why they are crying. So there are a lot of these symptoms. So just look out for symptoms which are completely out of the ordinary, where this person is not the way he seems. Another thing that I would also like to mention is, very often people who are depressed, and I'm not talking necessarily about their family, but about, people whom they interact with in the environment, they seem to be fine. They may have a smile on their face, but they're not smiling through their eyes, So they seem to be absolutely okay. And you ask them, is everything okay? Yeah, I'm absolutely fine. Because they're ashamed to say that I'm not fine. They're ashamed to seek help. They're ashamed to seek support. So you be a little vigilant as a friend, as a well-wisher, as somebody who cares for that person. And realize that, no, this person is not himself. Okay? And try, and things to say to people who are depressed is, I'm here for you. I may not understand exactly what you're going through. I may not feel your pain, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. Is there anything that I can do to help you? If you just want to speak, I'm here to listen. Supportive things like this, rather than criticizing the person for behaving the way that he is currently behaving. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, but what about the person?
The person needs help, needs professional help.
Okay.
Depression is not something that you can just pull out by yourself. You need support.
Okay.
You need support. No matter how strong you may be, if you are truly in depression, you need support to bring you out of it. It's not something that you can do all by yourself.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Another thing here is there's a question again saying that when we know the reasons but still can't overcome situations, we know that we should do that, but that thought in the head just doesn't leave you, or that rather it's not the thought anymore, it is an emotion into you, or some scars now. Can you guide us to how can we break that?
So we need to first and foremost understand, like I mentioned earlier in the talk, we don't control anything. We don't control life, our own lives, let alone somebody else's. Okay? The only thing that we do control is the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we behave, our actions. These are the only three things that are in our locus of control. Unfortunately, we believe that we control our lives, but we don't. Which is why very often we may plan and plan and plan and plan, and life has a different plan for us altogether, right? None of those plans fructify. So that is the first thing that we need to accept, that I don't control anything except the way I think, the way I feel, and my actions. So if I want something, no matter how desperately I want it, and if it is not happening, I need to identify that expectation I'm having, that this certain thing must happen. Why? Because I want it to happen. No, it would be nice if it happened. It would be fantastic if it happened. This is exactly what I want, that it should happen, that is what I want. But just because I want it so, doesn't mean that it has to be. Because that is reality. That is a fact of life. That not everything that we want happens. Right? So if we accept that fact and we turn that rigidity into a more flexible preference of, that I would really like for this to happen. I would really like to accomplish this. This is a goal that I have set for myself. And I really, really, really want to achieve that goal. And I will do everything that I want to achieve that goal. I will really try hard. I'll really work hard. But despite all my efforts, despite everything, all the time and energy that I put into it, it still does not guarantee that it will happen. It still doesn't guarantee that I will meet my goal. And that is the uncertainty that we need to accept, the ambiguity that we need to accept about life. That no matter how much we may plan things, everything that we do towards a certain goal, something happens. There's many a slip between the lips, the cup and the lips, right? So, yahan tak aata hai niwala, lekin muh mein nahi jata. So that happens, and you have to accept that. If you're going to be stubborn and if you're going to be rigid about it, then you're only creating problems for yourself. You're only increasing that distress for yourself. You have to learn to let go. And that is where wisdom kicks in.
Beautiful. And an extension to this let go is, one of the most difficult things is to let go is anger, especially because it always comes from the ego. When you're hurt, your identity and your ego that you're so stuck with and you don't want to let go.
Yeah.
Gauri, what are the tips to let go of that anger attached to that ego?
The tips to let go of the anger, like I said, you drop that rigidity of the expectation and the anger goes. It may leave you with certain bit of irritation, a bit of dissatisfaction, of course, because things haven't gone according to the way you wanted them. But
it's the ego that I really want to know about.
Oh, the ego. How do you drop the ego?
Anger attached to the ego.
Anger attached to the ego. Well, you drop the anger or you drop the ego. Now, dropping the ego is not that easy, but you can drop the anger. Dropping the ego will take a little more time. You need to evolve a little more. But dropping the anger is possible. So let's start with that.
Fair enough. In fact, Ravi Trehanji has a very nice comment here saying that instead of playing the blame game, start looking at the situation and problem from the other's point of view.
Yes, that's a good way to do it as well. Yes. Okay. But first, before that also, look into yourself. Like one of the tips that what am I contributing to this problem? What am I doing or not doing that contributes to this problem? Then put yourself in the other person's shoes and try to see it from his perspective. But first see your own. What are you doing?
Very true. That's really true. And with this, I would like to thank you, Gauri. It's been a lovely session. An absolutely calming session. That's how I've felt today. And I'm sure our audience has felt the same.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
thank
you
so much
for being with us. And Gauri, if we would like to get in touch with you, how can we? If our audience would like to get in touch with you.
So my website is www.selfalign.in. Selfalign. SELFALIGN.in. You can get in touch with me through the website. My Insta and FB handle is Selfalign with Gauri. You can get in touch with me through that. And you can also give me a call. I'm unfortunately not on WhatsApp anymore. I've exited, but I'm on Telegram. And you can get in touch with me through Telegram, or you can give me a call or SMS on 702-100-3174.
Right. So you said selfalign.in, is it?
That's right, yeah.
.in. Yeah, so we've added the email ID in the comment section here, as well as Gauri's Instagram handle. So for those who would like to connect with her, please do click on the handle and please do follow her. And I'm sure you'd get a lot more tips there to open the mind to a lot more possibilities. With this, good night, Gauri. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear audience, for a very patient listening and for participating and for those beautiful comments put here. Thank you once again. See you next Sunday. Good night. Shubh Ratri. Sayonara. Adios.
Good night. Thank you.